Operation Gladio, 1953 to 1990. In August 1990, Italian Prime Minister Guido Andreotti confirmed to the Italian Senate the existence of a secret so-called stay-behind army, codenamed Gladio, or the Sword, masterminded by NATO and the CIA, which had been in place for the previous 37 years and was operating throughout Western Europe. Gladio was responsible for several bloody false flag bombings to demonize leftists and prevent democratic wins by left-wing political parties. This included the Bologna train station bombing, which killed 85 innocent civilians in 1980. The Korean border provocation, 1950. On June 25th, it was widely reported in the US press that the North Korean military moved 3 miles into South Korean territory. The US accused North Korea of brutal, unprovoked aggression. The Truman administration claimed it was Stalin's first post-World War II move in his plan for world domination. However, historians have found that the attack began 2 days earlier, when South Korea first launched an attack which deliberately provoked a response from North Korea, and this sparked the 3-year Korean War, in which 3 million civilians were killed, 2/3 in North Korea. Number 9, Operation Northwoods, 1962. Right at the beginning of John F. Kennedy's term in office, in April of 1961, the CIA and Pentagon tried to pull off an illegal invasion of Cuba at the Bay of Pigs, but Kennedy refused to authorize air cover support. The invasion failed, but the Pentagon and CIA remained obsessed with taking on Cuba. General Lyman Lemnitzer, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, went to Kennedy with an outlandish plan called Operation Northwoods. The plan called for several scenarios which could kickstart a war with Cuba. One of them was that a plane, supposedly loaded with US passengers, was to be shot down. Another was to have innocent Americans shot dead on American soil by supposed Cuban terrorists. Any or all of these false flag operations would be blamed on Castro, justifying a war on Cuba. But JFK scotched the plan. Number 10, the Gulf of Tonkin incident, 1964. By 1964, concern about the alleged increasing threat of communist control over Southeast Asia was mounting. On August 2nd, the US media reported that North Vietnamese PT boats had attacked the USS Maddox off the coast of Vietnam. Two days later, the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution was approved by Congress. It was an unofficial declaration of war on North Vietnam, which resulted in a huge escalation of the conflict. By the end of the war, more than 3 million Vietnamese and 58,000 American soldiers were killed. Historians now conclude that the Gulf of Tonkin attacks never happened. Eyewitnesses claim there never had been any such attacks. Well, that's just 10 examples of some of the famous false flag operations that have happened throughout history. There are another 45 others detailed or mentioned in issue 13. Once you see how often governments use false flag operations to start wars, and big ones, or to justify them, you can see how likely it is that 9/11 was also a false flag operation. It has all the hallmarks of one. Well, back to our original question. This is part 3 of the presentation. Why is understanding 9/11 crucial to our future? As George Santayana once said, those who cannot remember the past are doomed to repeat it. And repeat it we are, with devastating consequences. Since 9/11, there have been several false flag operations already, including the Madrid commuter train bombings of 3/11 in 2004, killing 191 and wounding 1,460 others. And as such, was the worst such event in modern Spanish history. It was used as an attempt to re-elect a right-wing government in Spain on March the 14th, who was refusing the public's demand to remove Spanish troops from Iraq. The false flag fraud, however, didn't fool the Spanish voters, who turfed them out and elected in an anti-war socialist party. Now, some of the anomalies that we can pick out here that make us believe that it was a false flag operations are: 2 of the bombing suspects were police informants. Another one was linked to Spanish security service. And the bomb damage was not consistent with backpack bombs, which the official story said they were carrying, but that the bombs were probably located under the trains which had been parked overnight in a rail station. The real bombs were most likely hidden under the train carriages. Shortly afterwards, all the suspects were conveniently killed in an apartment building shootout, so they weren't around to be questioned. Then there's the London public transit bombings of 7/7 in 2005, killing 56 people and injuring 700 others. This was used to legitimize British involvement in the Iraq War, put an end to anti-globalization protests in Scotland, and terrorize the populace into accepting even more draconian police state measures to maintain security. Some of the anomalies included the fact that the attack was timed right in the middle of the G8 summit at the Gleneagles Hotel in Scotland, which was under siege by 200 anti-globalization protests. You may have remembered the Live 8 concert was part of that. They wanted to forgive all third world debt. But immediately after the bombings, those protests were cleared off the front pages, and it was all about the London bombings. The 4 young men who allegedly were behind it, here's some of the anomalies. The 4 young Muslim men who allegedly were behind it had bought return transit tickets and long-term car park tickets. 2 of them had pregnant wives. Eyewitness reports of the damage from the 3 subway bombs indicated the explosions came from underneath the train carriage floors, not from any backpacks placed on the floor. One witness said, Bruce Lake, metal floors were pushed upwards, not downwards, and he was there. He saw it. He had to step over the opening to get out and into the hospital. It's the same pattern, the same outcome. And more recently, the Detroit-bound underwear bomber on Christmas Day 2009. Some of the anomalies include the fact that the underwear bomber, Umar Abdul Muttalib, was able to board the plane in Amsterdam without a passport and without any luggage. According to eyewitness attorney Kurt Haskell and his wife Lori, a smart-dressed East Indian man made all the arrangements with the people at the check-in counter at Northwest Airlines. Where is he now? We don't know where this East Indian man is because he's been disappeared. All the videotapes have been disappeared as well. Apparently, Muttalib's father, the head of a major bank, warned the CIA station chief in Nigeria just 1 month before the incident that his son was a risk, but they obviously did nothing to prevent him from flying. So you can see there are certain patterns which identify these false flag operations. That's why it is imperative for us to be able to recognize future false flag operations whenever and wherever they happen. If there were a future terrorist attack in Canada, we would all be horrified. But we need to be careful how we react to a terrorist attack if we see one. It could be a false flag operation. So we need to ask a lot of questions of the authorities, our MPs, of the media, so we don't get inadvertently swept up into something that can be used against our own best interests. For example, here's what they could use this terror attack for: to gain our support to have the coalition forces bomb Iran, or have us willingly give up our nationhood for a new fortified North American Union, or to bring in more police state measures. As Bob McEwen, host of the Fifth Estate, says on the program on 9/11, which aired last December and starred Keith Dewdney, Barry Zwicker, and others, it's a very good program, the real importance of the fight over 9/11 truth may have less to do with the past than it does with the future.